Mr. President. Je suis très heureux d'être ici et de participer.
I'm very happy to be here and to participate in the common task that's gathering us.
Warriors for both human rights in Iran and justice for Ukraine, respectively, and look forward to their testimony. May I add that I regard this committee, I said so when I was an MP and reaffirm it today, as being one of the most important, if not the most important, parliamentary committee involved in the struggle for human rights, the pursuit of justice, and the defense of democracy. 5 years ago, I spoke of a resurgent global authoritarianism, backsliding of democracies, assault on human rights, and political prisoners as a looking glass. Today we meet at a historical inflection moment where we are witnessing a concerted, intensifying, collaborative axis of authoritarianism, Russia, China, Iran, and their proxies, where we are seeing an increasing not only backsliding of democracies, but polarization within and between democracies, where the United States, formerly the linchpin of the rules-based international order, now under the Trump administration, has been upending the transnational alliance and that rules-based international order, where we are witnessing not only assaults on human rights, but an age of mass atrocity, and political prisoners not only as a looking glass into all this, but as torchbearers for human rights, as defenders of democracy, as pursuers of justice. They are the real champions of whom I will speak today. And may I just say, parenthetically, that those of whom I speak, I have been serving as their international legal counsel and make representations in that context. May I summarize briefly the cases and causes of political prisoners from the axis of authoritarianism, Russia, China, Iran, as well as from Eritrea, which ranks last, I repeat, last in the World Press Freedom Index for the last 10 years. May I begin with the case of Dr. Ahmadreza Jalali, a Swedish Iranian physician, now in his 10th year of unjust imprisonment, suffering not only torture in detention, but deprivation of the right to counsel, the right to a fair trial under Iranian law, the right to visitations by family, the right to representations by consular officials on his behalf, and where his wife, Vida, just days ago received a chilling message from him, from Evin prison, where he spoke both of his imminent threat of execution or death by absence of any medical treatment for his serious medical conditions. And when I speak of Dr. Ahmadreza Jalali, we are reminded of Canada's taking the leadership in 2021 in the Declaration on Arbitrary Detention in State-to-State Relations, and where his case, as the others I will mention, is a case study of where we can lead in making representations on his behalf. And we'll close only by saying that all of the UN special procedures, all of them, have come out and called for the release, the immediate and unconditional release of Dr. Ahmadreza Jalali, which brings me to the second political prisoner here, and that is the heroic Russian dissident, historian, political prize winner, Vladimir Kara-Murza. Vladimir Kara-Murza first came to Canada in 2011, along with the then leader of the Democratic Russian opposition, Boris Nemtsov, to support then my initial draft legislation on Magnitsky sanctions. Boris Nemtsov was then assassinated outside the Kremlin in 2015. Vladimir Kara-Murza came and testified before our Foreign Affairs Committee in 2015, calling for Magnitsky sanctions and the like, went back to Russia, was poisoned, survived, came back again here in 2017, testified again, I was with him at the time, went back to Russia, once again the target of an assassination attempt, survived. In 2022, was charged with treason for nothing other than advocating for justice within Russia on behalf of political prisoners and justice for Ukraine, sentenced to 25 years in treason, released a year and a half ago in a prisoner exchange where Canada played an important role in his advocacy, but as we meet today, threatened yet again by Russians for imprisonment. And as I said, we know of 2 assassination attempts followed by his imprisonment for treason. And I would mention also Alexei Gorinov, whom I represent as well, who's been serving and became the first Moscow city councillor to be imprisoned for anti-Russian slander and adjective, for nothing else but supporting justice for Ukraine. Which brings me now to China and its assault on the rules-based order. This committee is familiar with it. The mass atrocities targeting the Muslim Uyghurs, which have been held to constitute acts of genocide. Its dismantling of the democratic regime in Hong Kong, its persecution of the Falun Gong, its menacing of Taiwan, its repression of Tibet, and what is not so well known, which brings me to the particular point here, that China imprisons more political prisoners than any other country in the world. And I want to mention in this regard the case and cause of Jimmy Lai. You've heard about it before this committee, so I need not go into it other than to say that Jimmy Lai is himself imprisoned for affirming the basic foundational Canadian values of media freedom, of democracy, promotion of the rule of law. And as we meet in solitary confinement after 5 years, and we're here too, we seek his immediate and unconditional release, again as called for by UN special procedures, as his life is at risk as we meet. And I would be remiss if I did not mention in this regard Dr. Wang Bizang, himself a PhD graduate from McGill University, who formed the Overseas Democracy China movement in 2002 when I was an MP here. He was abducted back to China. He was convicted on the trumped-up charges of both terrorism and treason and sentenced to life imprisonment in solitary confinement, where he languishes today at the risk of death for these reasons. His daughter, Tiana Wang, has taken up his case and cause, and I have been serving as his international legal counsel. And I will close at this point with regard to political prisoners, mentioning the case of Dwight Isaac, a Swedish Eritrean dual citizen, the longest imprisoned journalist in the world, who, along with his fellow journalists, established a newspaper, Setit, in Eritrea, 1997. The whole disbanded in 2001, all of them imprisoned, many of them who've died in detention. We have reason to believe that Dwight Isaac is still alive, and I urge this committee, which are apostles for media freedom, when we have a dual citizen in the country with the worst press freedom assaults of any country in the world, to take up his case and cause. And so I close, Mr. Chairman, by saying that it is our responsibility, I said this as a member of Parliament, repeated here today and reaffirm it, to speak on behalf of those who cannot be heard, to bear witness on behalf of those who cannot testify, to act on behalf of those who are putting not simply their livelihood, but their lives on the line. At times such as these, qui s'accuse, s'accuse. Whoever remains indifferent indicts himself and herself. I look to this committee for its continuing and exemplary leadership and undertaking the necessary action on behalf of these real champions of human rights. Thank you.